So, there's a rumor about a Victorian scientist that honestly sounds fake. That he tried to eat every animal on Earth. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. Hedgehogs, crocodiles, panthers, mice on toast. Ew. And apparently, possibly, the mummified heart of a French king. This sounds like internet nonsense, but the uncomfortable truth is, it's not entirely wrong. Today we are talking about William Buckland, Oxford professor, founding geologist, dinosaur pioneer, and maybe the weirdest eater in scientific history. William Buckland was born in 1784 in England, right at the moment when science was starting to professionalize. This was before scientist was even a normal job title. People like Buckland were clergy, natural philosophers, collectors, lecturers. He eventually became Oxford's first professor of geology, a big deal in time when geology itself was controversial. Why controversial? Because rocks were starting to disagree with the Bible. In the early 1800s, studying the Earth wasn't neutral. Stratigraphy, fossils, deep time, all of it suggested that the planet was far older than a literal reading of Genesis allowed. Buckland walked a careful line. He was an Anglican priest and a serious geologist. He initially tried to interpret fossils and sediment layers as evidence of Noah's flood, a position he later abandoned when the data stopped cooperating. That willingness to change his mind is important. It tells us something about the kind of thinker he was. Curious first, dogma second. Also, and this matters, he was extremely theatrical. Buckland didn't just teach geology, he performed it, which helps explain everything that comes next. Somewhere along the way, Buckland developed a strange ambition. He wanted to taste the animal kingdom, not as a joke, not as a shock value, but as a way of knowing nature completely. This wasn't as insane as it sounds, at least not by the 19th century standards. Naturalists at the time believed true understanding required direct sensory experience. Naturalists at the time believed true understanding required direct sensory experience. You didn't just observe animals, you handled them, dissected them, studied them, and for Buckland, apparently, you also ate them. Reliable accounts from friends, students, and later biographers agree on one thing. Buckland ate a lot of animals people normally wouldn't, Hedgehog was reportedly his favorite. Ew. He also ate crocodile, ostrich, porpoise, panther, various rodents. He once served mice on toast, ew, to guests, casually, as if this were normal dinner party behavior. This wasn't poverty. He wasn't starving. This was curiosity taken too far. Now we need to talk about the most famous story carefully. There's a claim that Buckland once took a bite of the mummified heart of King Louis XIV, which was being passed around as a historical relic, I guess. This story appears in later retellings and memoirs. But here's the important part. There's no definitive primary source confirming it. Historians treat this anecdote as plausible but unverified. In other words, it fits Buckland's personality, it fits the era's casual attitude toward relics, but we can't prove it happened. So we treat it as legend, not fact, which is exactly how responsible history works. And honestly, even without the king's heart, the rest is already unhinged enough. It's tempting to see Buckland as a Victorian meme, but that would miss the point. His eating habits were tied to a belief that nature should be experienced fully, not just categorized from a distance. This was an era when people drank mercury as medicine. Jesus. Doctors tasted urine for diagnosis. Ew. Scholars dissected animals at dinner tables. Nice. Science was physical, messy, personal. Buckland just pushed that logic to its extreme. This same mindset led Buckland to make one of the most important and funniest scientific contributions of the century. He was the first person to identify and name coprolites. That's fossilite feces. Yeah, ew again. Buckland studied ancient poop and realized it was crucial for understanding ancient ecosystems, predator-prey relationships, diet, behavior. He even had coprolites displayed on his table during dinner parties, because of course he did. Buckland also played a role in early dinosaur science. In 1824, he described Megalosaurus, one of the first dinosaurs ever scientifically documented. At the time, no one even knew what a dinosaur was. They just knew this bone is enormous and terrifying. Once again, Buckland was at the frontier, touching things no one fully understood yet. There's a pattern here. He didn't just observe history, he put it in his mouth, sometimes literally. Later in life, Buckland's mental health declined, obviously. He suffered from periods of severe depression and confusion, likely neurological illness. Eventually, he was cared for by his wife and family until his death in 1856. This matters because we shouldn't romanticize eccentricity without acknowledging cost. He wasn't just quirky, he was human. William Buckland went viral in his own century. Students packed his lectures. Stories spread. People remembered him. Not because he was polite, but because he was memorable. And because science, at its best, isn't sterile. It's strange, curious, a little dangerous. So no, William Buckland did not eat every animal on Earth. That's exaggeration. But he did try to experience nature in a way most people wouldn't dare. He believed knowledge wasn't just something you read. It was something you touched, dissected, risked, sometimes swallowed. And maybe that's why we still talk about him. Not because he was right about everything, but because he was willing to be weird in the pursuit of understanding.